Hey, so unfortunately, every now and then some of my videos aren't gonna be happy and about music and stuff because, like it or not, there are real and important things that happen that we need to talk about. This is for dealers, addicts, doctors, as someone who doesn't touch anything. This is for everyone, and it's something that needs to be said. I believe they are being said, but they're not being said enough. Pills are destroying us. This video is in reference to the recent news that Tom Petty's heart attack a couple months ago was due to an accidental overdose. It's a touchy subject, but that is due to someone taking a cocktail of drugs that they were being prescribed properly. If it was accidental, that means that he wasn't misusing them and he was taking them accordingly. Unfortunately, the pharmaceutical companies do have the power in situations like this because, they're the ones developing all of this and the doctors are the ones prescribing it. I think that doctors need to be a little bit more cautious over the prescriptions that they're writing. The doctors aren't the ones pulling the trigger when it comes to misusing pills, but they're enabling it and they're allowing a lot of it to happen. For example, even elementary school kids these days, if their teachers can't stand them talking in class, they call the parents and they talk to the parents, and then everybody kind of agrees that the child has ADHD without even doing a proper diagnosis. And, Ritalin, Adderall, all of these stimulants that are meant for ADHD are prescribed. So I feel like our country is just taking the easy way out, and instead of trying to properly address behavioral problems, they are writing prescriptions and looking away and then not paying attention or monitoring how the person takes it. So even kids are being exposed to, taking pills as a means of solving their problems from a very young age. That's habitual. They're going to carry that with them. It's easy. I went to the doctor the other day and I was telling her about some problems that I was having, and after me talking about them and a couple things I've been through, she offered prescription. I don't want to get into the habit of having to rely on taking something, whether it's addictive or not. You still psychologically get that placebo effect where taking something is going to make you feel better. Even with pains, it's as easy as going to a doctor and telling them how much pain you're in, and you get a Vicodin prescription or you get an Oxy prescription. I had a surgery done a couple years ago, and I was going to get it done at my school originally, and then I flew home instead to do it, but they wrote me the prescription for the Vicodin for the surgery by my school before I even had the surgery done. So I had access to the pills before even having the surgery done and having the need for them. And then once I did get the surgery, it was called an internal fixation open reduction on my toe. I had to have 7 screws and a plate put in my toe because I shattered it, my big toe. The local anesthetic wore off. I felt waves being shot up to my knee from my foot, and it was the most excruciating thing I've ever felt in my life. So I eventually had to take the painkillers I was prescribed, and they made me feel sick. I started having to take half of the pill, and it was already probably the lowest dosage possible, and it was meant for the pain. So I don't have the stomach for it. I don't know how people can just start using them recreationally. The pain was gone, but the room spun. There's all these programs that talk about like drug use and stuff in schools, and like DARE, for example, and they talk about all of the illegal drugs like cocaine and heroin and meth, but they don't really seem to address the opiate problem that we have as well, and how easily it is to become addicted to these things, and they're much easier to obtain than cocaine and heroin and meth. Sometimes they're even more dangerous. What they also don't talk about enough is that you're not going to get in trouble if you're with someone and they're in danger and you call 911. I don't know how so many people aren't aware of these laws, but there are laws that protect you against getting in trouble if you call 911 because someone is ODing in front of you. You cannot get in trouble. And even if that's a thought on your mind, would you rather have to live with the rest of your life that someone passed away when you could have done something about it than risk you possibly facing some kind of trouble to call. One of my friends one night a couple years ago was throwing up just from drinking too much, and I started to see her kind of foaming at the mouth a little bit, and I called 911, and by the time the ambulance got there and we're talking to her, she was fine, and they stayed for a couple of hours to make sure she was okay, but they didn't feel it was necessary to bring her. And, you know, I was drunk too, I was underage, and that wasn't even a thought on my mind that any of us were going to get in trouble. It was, this girl is uncontrollably throwing up, and she could have alcohol poisoning, and she could choke on it and pass away. In relevance to Tom Petty's situation, to Prince's situation, Michael Jackson's situation, too many people's situations, fentanyl is a word that I am so goddamn sick of hearing about. I am so sick of hearing about people passing away on it. I'm sick of hearing about dealers cutting things with it, and it's killing people everywhere. It's not just killing musicians and celebrities, it's killing people everywhere. My hometown, in that area, I know of so many people who have passed away due to fentanyl. I'm not trying to sound like a grandma or that I'm overprotective or anything, or I'm a Debbie Downer. Do what you want, but just be careful and don't trust anyone. You might think that your dealer's got your back, but he might be having a really hard time financially in his life. So he could be buying fentanyl, which is cheap and easy to manufacture, and putting it in the Coke that you think is Coke, and you know, you're gonna do your normal number of lines or whatever. If it's laced with fentanyl, I don't think people realize, like, fentanyl can be up to 10,000 times stronger than the average street heroin. That is insanely potent. So people think that they're shooting up heroin for the first time, or they think that they're gonna do the normal amount that they usually do, and it's fentanyl, and they drop dead within seconds. That's what I have against narcotic dealers, is they too are enabling it like the doctors. We all have to make a living. I understand that. I know that it's really hard for some people, and some people are in extremely unfortunate situations, but you're just gonna go around and selling fentanyl to people and disguising it as something else so that you can make a quick buck off it, and they're dying, and you don't even care. You don't make a living off of harming people. That's absolutely insane. You might as well be branded as a serial killer if that's what you're going to make a living doing. When it comes to users and addicts, I definitely think this country needs a more rehabilitative approach. A lot of people, they don't have insurance. They're not going to spend 90 grand to send their loved ones to rehab, and then they keep using and they pass away. Some people relapse after rehab anyway, but it's worth a try. It's, you know, like, you don't just lock somebody up who has a serious problem. People don't realize that addiction is a disease. But when it comes to the dealers of anything else other than marijuana, I don't think that there should really be that strict of punishment for that. But I think that there needs to be consequences for people who are dealing hard drugs, especially opiates, because they're so dangerous. Someone I was friends with in high school passed away about a month and a half after our graduation, 17 years old. Having to attend a funeral of someone that was my age was probably one of the saddest, eeriest things I've ever had to do in my entire life. You have the Adderall fad with university. I really, really believe it's a fad. Unless you're diagnosed with ADHD, you really shouldn't have that hard of a time concentrating. If you're having problems with your significant other and that's for like hurting your concentration, you don't just go and pop an Adderall because you feel like you need to focus. It's called growing up, creating a strategic way of studying, creating a schedule, just being organized and being on top of your stuff, and then it'll be a lot easier. But people are just, like I said, they're just taking the easy way out for everything, and everybody just wants to pop pills to solve all their problems. You know, you guys are all going out and popping bars while you're drinking because you want to feel more fucked up. Like, you're not just making yourself feel more fucked up in that night, you're literally rearranging the chemical balance in your brain and can end up doing permanent damage to yourself. It's not something to mess around with. The pharmaceutical company is having a ball with the amount of money that they're making. There are people who have generalized anxiety disorders, PTSD. They need medications for the short time being, but then there are people who are just using them for the completely wrong reason. Even alcohol. People really need to be careful with the alcohol. peer pressure is such a stupid thing to me too. Like, who cares if someone is shoving a shot in your face and telling you to have more, and that you're a pussy if you don't take more? I would rather be called that and go home and wake up the next morning than choke on my puke because I wanted to show off about how many shots I could take, or whatever the situation is. You don't want to see that happen to any of your loved ones. You don't also want to be that person who does that to your loved ones, who makes them see you that way. You know, you don't want to be either of those people, and you especially don't want to be the person that ends up in a body bag and becomes another statistic of somebody who misused something and it ended up taking a toll on their life. Stay safe.